Hey, my name's Doug. I run a business called Convology. It's a community-based business, and in fact, my community next month is going to celebrate its 5th year in existence. I've grown and scaled it to something I'm personally really proud of and kind of surprised by the success of. And I just finished up with a video packed full of tips that I would give to myself or to anyone starting a community-based business. And in this video, I want to share the things that I regret, wish I did differently, or wish that I did over these past 5 years that I think someone who's kind of at that starting point in their community may find valuable. So let's go ahead and jump into tip number one. I would price my community different than I did when I started. When I started, I did one thing really well, which was I priced it a little bit lower in the beginning and then I raised it pretty quickly for new members. But the regret that I have is that I did fewer price increases for larger amounts. If I were to go back and do things all over again, from the beginning, I would do many price increases or smaller price increases more often. I would increase the frequency of price increases, but make them smaller. I'm fine with where I ended up in my pricing, but I think how I got there over the last 5 years, I would have done differently. And that's because it would have allowed me to introduce scarcity, saying to people, hey, just so you know, when we reach 50 members, the price goes to X. When we reach 75 members, the price goes to Y. I talked about that as one of the strategies that I would recommend in my last video. That's one of the things I wish I did in my own business. I think since I started implementing that strategy, it's worked really well, and that's something I wish I just did sooner. The next thing that I regret not doing is having paid events in my community. I still don't have any paid events. Everything inside of my community here is my events section in my community platform. Everything I do, weekly office hours, workshops every other week, everything that I have, mastermind calls, it's all included. I'm not saying that I would charge my members for these events, but I'm saying that I think what I would have done differently and what I want to start doing and really wish I did honestly from the beginning, is to have like quarterly paid events that would be almost like recruitment workshops where you could say, hey, I'm charging admission $25 for this workshop. Members get in for free. You know the spiel, right? And then I could do like email marketing around that. I think that would have been a huge benefit to my community had I implemented that from the beginning. I've had this lingering regret now for months, thinking to myself, dang, I should have done that sooner. Because I've seen so much success from the workshop model that I use. It's part of the Business Growth Loop, which is a program that I have in our community. It's how I've grown my business, but I stupidly never did workshops specifically in my community for non-members. I should have done that. And one of the things that Circle, the platform that I use, I've got a video on why I use Circle. I'll link that down below. But one of the amazing things that they can do in events is to be able to say, is this a paid event? And you can literally choose paid event and you can tie it to a paywall. You can tie it to an access group. You can put in a price. You can do all kinds of really cool stuff here and build automations around it that I just never took advantage of, and I'm kicking myself over. Okay, the next regret that I have, and something I honestly wish I had done, I don't know from the beginning, but at least in the last 2 years for sure. And that could just be the time that we're living in. But I wish that I focused less on courses. So over the years, I've launched courses. This is what I have today. I've combined a bunch of them together. I've gotten rid of some. But I wish I did less focus on big courses and more focus on smaller micro content. Like I mentioned in the events section, I do these right now. I'm doing them every other week, workshops on like value bridges and stuff like that. I wish that I had done a lot more of those rather than saying, hey, once a year or once every 6 months, I've got this brand new course coming out, for a couple of reasons. One, I feel like courses, they've been on the decline for quite a while. I've noticed engagement has dropped significantly with them because a lot of people just get overwhelmed with this idea of taking a big 30 lesson, 40, 50 lesson course. Some people love it, but most people in my data have shown that they don't love it. But my engagement with like a 1 hour workshop or a 30-minute workshop or seminar or training is through the roof statistically compared to my courses. And my own members have given me feedback that they love my workshops. And I've had plenty of people over the years say they love my courses, but I haven't had the same type of reaction. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. It just seems so much more genuine that they loved the workshop. And what's really cool about the workshop model is you can have more of them, which means you can be more adaptable to change. Making all these courses like these Thrive Themes courses that I've done, maybe a bad example. Thrive hasn't changed much in the last couple of years. But Astra and Spectra, here, we'll use this as a good example. My Astra and Spectra course it's been phenomenal for the last year, but I know that Spectra 3 is about to come out, which is going to introduce a whole new interface and way of using Spectra. And that course now is going to become obsolete, not from a principles side, but from like an interface practical implementation usage side. So I'm gonna have to go in and record a ton more content for this course. What I think I'm gonna do instead is record a bunch of smaller workshops and have that become the course and get away from this idea of courses. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I don't want to make courses, and if you watched my what I did right video, I mentioned in my tips for starting, growing, and scaling a community is to have content that isn't like community content, but it sits side by side to be community centric and all tied into the community. I think the workshop model is 100 times better, and I just wish I would have done it from the beginning. So much easier to adapt to changes, be modern, talk about new things. So I'm doing it now, and I've been doing it now for about the last 3 months, but I just wish I did it sooner. This one is about introducing automation sooner. So up until this year, so like for the first almost 5 years, actually, yeah, almost 5 years, 4.5 years, we'll call it, I did very, very little automation after somebody joined. Everything I did was, oh, you joined the community. Here's your 1 week follow-up, your 2 week follow-up. I've tried different like email follow-ups, but one of the things I wish I did was integrate more with a community type automation. So what am I talking about? Well, I think a good example is inside of Circle, which I mentioned is the platform that my community is powered by. There are all these automations built into their workflow system. For example, onboarding. When a new member joins, send them an email or a DM. Gather feedback via email, gather feedback via DM, send messages, engagement with new members, email or DM event attendees. I think DMing event attendees is one that I really need to start doing more now that I talked about one of my regrets about not having the workshop model. You can have events in Circle that fire off of all kinds of different things that you have going on inside of your community. There's ones for paywalls for what people buy. There's administrative ones. These I've actually wished I had access to, but I only recently upgraded to the bigger Circle plan because I've been growing my community so much. I've been wanting this automation. I should have just done it sooner. I feel like the ability to DM people who are at a certain point in your course, even though I would grow away from courses, but all these things I think would be so much more valuable for engagement and keeping people connected to you and your community. It's just something that I wish I did. And although gamification is not on my list of things I wish I did, I've actually never done gamification. I don't think you need to. I'm probably never going to do it. I think this automation it kind of satisfies a similar role. It engages people more, and it also, from the administrative side, gives me more resources to grow my community, reduce churn, that type of thing. So it's on my list of regrets. So that's why it's in this video. It's not going to be applicable to everybody because it's a little bit more niche, but it's something I wish I did sooner, is upgrade to the bigger Circle plan and implement all of this automation. All right, and the last thing about my community that I regret/wish I did is related to discounts. So over the years, less so recently, because obviously it became a regret at some point, so I stopped doing it. I would run promotions and discounts on my membership fee. Like Black Friday, historically, I've had like my lifetime deal comes back at Black Friday and it gets discounted by a decent margin. Although that has brought in a ton of people into my business, not the lifetime deal, I'm talking about the discounting, I don't think I regret doing it. I think if I were to start all over again, what I would tell myself to do is, one, go with the pricing model that I described of smaller price increases more often, and use Black Friday to time it correctly and say, here's the Black Friday deal. You got until the Black Friday's over to lock in at the price before it goes up. I love when businesses do that. It's awful, but I love it. And then the other one that I would tell myself is kind of related to that is to run incentives more than discounts. Why? Well, because the value of my community is already way higher than the price I charge people to join. So instead of discounting that and discounting the value even further below the true value, it's at an incentive to get people to join. Maybe I could offer like a 30-minute onboarding call, just you and me one-on-one. Something that I think I'm going to do for Black Friday is to like give people 30 minutes with me if they join the community on like an annual plan or something like that. I'm going to work in those incentives so that they're not like community incentives, but they're things that like live in orbit of my community. And because I've talked about how my community's, all me, and I'm the focus of the community, I think an incentive that kind of flies parallel to that is a really good value add without saying, oh, you join the community, but you don't have this feature in the community, things like that. And the last one on my list, like a bonus one, we'll call this number 6, or we'll call this the bonus, is I don't think I regret the way that I've structured my community as an all access. That used to be what it was called, Convology All Access. It used to be Convology Pro, then it was Convology All Access, then it was Convology Plus. But historically, from the beginning, it has always been you buy into the community, you have everything. And I'm just as of this last month thinking to myself, should I, from the beginning, have done different pricing tiers where this tier gets this stuff, this tier gets this stuff, and this one gets this one? I still don't know, which is why I didn't make this one my core 5 regrets. I'm thinking that there's an element of giving everything that is helpful and harmful. I think it's helpful because people love the idea of everything being included, no nickel and diming. I think it's hurtful because some people say, well, I only want this part of the community, but am I paying for all the rest of this stuff? There's elements of that, which is why I've shifted my own community over the years, because I've been thinking about this even more in the last 30 days, which is when I just recently did a lot of the restructuring. I've been thinking like, okay, I want my community to be focused on events. Events are focused on specific things, but I'm not charging $250 a quarter because I have these courses. I'm charging $250 a quarter because you get me multiple times a week and 24/7 in the community. And you're paying for the value add of, skipping to the head of the line in terms of launching and growing your business and skipping that wasted time and setup. But I'm throwing this in here because it's worth thinking about. It's worth thinking about building in upsells into your community. And that's something that I'm still going to think about before I make a video about it. But I think it's something that I am going to be introducing at some point into my community, is this idea of my community's Convology Plus, but there's like a special add-on or a VIP tier, something where you can work in additional revenue for additional value, but it can't be tied too closely to the community or people are going to want it as part of the community. I haven't even fully fleshed out this idea yet, but I wanted to throw it into this video because I feel like I should have thought about this sooner rather than later because of the opportunity cost. All right, but that's it. That's the things that I regret / wish I did sooner with my community. Here I am coming up on the 5-year anniversary of Convology Plus. Hopefully you learned something from that you can maybe take away and think about for your own community as you're starting it. If you're interested in joining Convology Plus, I do have a link down below in the description. But otherwise, definitely recommend you check out this video here where I talk about all the things that I did right and did really well, and would definitely recommend you think about if you're starting your community.